with you today. Can I just pause that
Well,
quick?
yes.
All right. You didn't do an introduction of yourself. I thought we were going to do an introduction, you introducing you, me introducing me, and then getting into it. You didn't introduce yourself.
I always do that. Thank you for catching it. Let me just grab it.
When it comes to leadership and character development, when it comes to the role that it plays in company culture, you cannot separate the character of an individual from company culture. So I'm asking myself, and I'm going to ask the audience these questions. Why is there a need to talk so often about company culture? Is there anything wrong with company culture that it's getting the attention that it deserves? If you are an employee, please take some time out to watch this podcast. It's going to be benefit to you.
Absolutely.
If you are a leader and if you are a manager as part of an organization, you need to watch this podcast. If you form any part of executive leadership in a company, organization, government department, take some time out and watch this podcast because it's going to be speaking directly to you. Also, very critically, if you are in a toxic company culture, sir, ma'am, take the time out and watch this podcast because it is going to make complete sense as to why your culture is the way that it is.
Welcome everyone to a new episode of Ideas Exchange. My name is Inge Loff, founder and CEO of IL People Solutions Consulting, an internationally certified NLP coach, and focused on growth mindset coaching. I speak to and with women in business, women in leadership, women who really is intent and purposeful in terms of what it is that they want to achieve. And they would typically partner with me as a strategic coach partner to help achieve that. Please join me today as I have a returning guest, Mr. Shawn Naidu. I will give him an opportunity to introduce himself. And we are touching today on culture and how important character is within culture. So when we say culture, we're not talking about societies, although he might go down that road, but specifically or primarily on corporate culture. So enjoy. Shawn Naidu, welcome back to Ideas Exchange podcast. How are you, sir?
I am absolutely great. Thank you so much, Inga. I'm excited for this session with you. So glad to be here with you. And thank you for inviting me back again. I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. Thank you. How are you doing?
I'm good. I am enjoying a lovely and beautiful autumn day in the Napa Valley of South Africa, I always joke to say, so which is Stellenbosch to our audience members who do not know the Napa Valley of South Africa, but it's a blessed and beautiful day today.
It's awesome in Cape Town. I'm sure even more so in your side of the world, of course, yes. The name is Shawn Naidu, founder and CEO of the All Things Are Possible group. We're an accredited skills development and training company based in South Africa. But more specifically, over and beyond skills development, our forte, passion, and specialization is in leadership and character development. And so we do all things character. Is there a need for character development? Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. There is a huge need for leadership and character development. Hence the reason why we've been doing the series, Inga, on leadership and character. Thank you for giving me the opportunity and the platform to speak on a topic that many people within companies, cultures, organizations, governments, just generally in society is not talking about. There is an assumption that people already have character and people don't have the level of character that we need them to have, especially within leadership. And hence the reason why me focusing on leadership and character development. And so I'm excited to be with you today.
So Shawn, welcome back. And as I have intro this episode, we're touching on culture, we're touching on the importance of character, which is your strongest message and philosophy with the All Things Are Possible group. But before we get stuck into the meat of things, as usual, I always like you to introduce the topics and help people just understand how the scaffolding is put together. So if we talk about character and if we talk about culture or corporate culture, how do you link the two and the importance of it, especially when you're trying to drive that importance and that messaging with leadership?
Indeed. No, thank you. Inga, there is an unknown reality that many people, when I have a challenge embracing, because it's the unknown, it's unusual, it's unconventional, especially when it comes to company culture. So in an attempt to change, improve, develop company culture, people often lean towards doing the one thing that everyone is doing, which is let's develop the skills of our people. Let's send our people on culture building workshops. Let's send our people on leadership development workshops, on any level of personal development, etc., with the hope that when people come back, they will change the culture. Culture will be different, and that's not necessarily true. There is one thing that has been missing, and for those of you who have been watching the podcast over the last couple of sessions, from session 1 up until now, we spoke about the importance of character. And just to lay a little bit of a foundation and a recap of some of the things that we've said in the previous episodes, is that you are your character. You are not your skill set. You are not your intelligence. You are not the level of your qualifications or even your experience. You are your character. You cannot separate character from an individual. Every moment, every day you walk out of the house and you leave your house and you step into public domain, everyone encounters your character. So you don't leave your character at home in the morning and say, okay, character, let's leave you here. I'll see you later on in the afternoon. Your character goes literally everywhere with you. So here's the thing. If you are your character, when people encounter you, they encounter your character. If you are your character, when people work with you, they work in with your character. If you are your character, when you are in a close environment within your company culture, whether it's your clients, whether it's your colleagues, your managers, the people that you work with, they experience your character on a daily basis. There is not a moment in your life where your character is not being exhibited and is not being experienced by somebody else. So you cannot separate an individual from their character. So when it comes to leadership and character development, when it comes to the role that it plays in company culture, you cannot separate the character of an individual from company culture. But Inga, before I get into the nitty-gritty of character and company culture and the role that character plays in company culture, I want to pose a couple of questions, and it's not necessarily directed to you, but just to our audience that is watching out there. You know, for those of us that have an active presence on social media, that put out content regularly, that engage with people on a regular basis, that is in tune with what is happening in society, within company cultures, within industry of leadership development, people development, organizational development, change management, we know that on top of people's agendas and companies' agendas is culture. So culture is a buzzword. It's at the top of the agenda for companies. Companies want their culture changed, supposedly, and I'll get back to the reason why I say supposedly. Culture is critical for people, employees, leaders, managers, etc., etc. If you were to look on content that has been posted on many of the platforms, there are many horrific stories of conditions of company culture that is making people unhappy, making people depressed, making people mentally unstable, even to the point of committing suicide because of the levels of bullying, intimidation, victimization, and abuse that is happening within company cultures. And you and I have heard of the many quotations and sayings where they say that people don't leave bad companies, they leave bad management. You've heard that before? People don't leave bad companies, they leave bad management. But what the quotation or that saying neglects to mention is what makes the management bad enough for people to want to leave. Because there's a full stop at the end of that statement. People don't leave bad companies, they leave bad managers. I take it further and I say, okay, why are people leaving bad managers? What is making managers bad? I can guarantee you that the thing that makes managers bad, to the point where people, your greatest talent, wants to leave a company after many years of dedication, commitment, and loyalty to a company, the thing that makes them want to leave is that they've reached their point of no return, where they have to leave the company and the management, not because of the company, but specifically because of the character of the management and how the management is treating people. I made the statement that you are your character. Your character determines how you treat people. Let's get that out of the way from the very get-go. Your character determines how you treat people. It's not the level of your skill. It's not the level of your qualification. Your character determines how you treat people. So whether you are disrespectful, intolerable, lack integrity, no compassion for people, no self-control, that does not speak to the level of your skill set. That speaks to the level of your character. So I'm asking myself, and I'm going to ask the audience these questions. Why is there a need to talk so often about company culture? That's question number one. Question number two, is there anything wrong with company culture that it's getting the attention that it deserves? Is there anything wrong with company culture that it's getting the level of attention from companies, from training companies, training and development companies? Is there something wrong with company culture that it's getting the level of attention that it is getting? And also, let me ask the question, if there is something wrong, what is wrong with company culture? What is wrong with company culture? Let me just put a pause on there and maybe just direct this podcast to the attention of some key individuals. If you are an employee, please take some time out to watch this podcast. It's going to be benefit to you. Absolutely. If you are a leader and if you are a manager as part of an organization, you need to watch this podcast. If you form any part of executive leadership in a company, organization, government department, take some time out and watch this podcast because it's going to be speaking directly to you. Also, very critically, if you are in a toxic company culture, sir, ma'am, take the time out and watch this podcast because it is going to make complete sense as to why your culture is the way that it is. So if you right now are a victim of a toxic company culture, take the time out and watch this podcast. Having said that, everyone who's in the world of work, Inga, is part of company culture. No one can escape company culture. Your company culture is either good or it's either bad. Either way, every single one of us are involved in the world of work as part of a company culture. And some people might be saying, but Shawn, I work remotely, hybrid, etc. Even so, you are still part of a company culture. There's a culture that exists and you are definitely part of it. Inga, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that before I go any further, because I know I posed a couple of questions and I asked about company, and I know you've got extensive experience with your background working in people development, organizational development, change management. You were part of company culture, and I'm not too sure if you got any stories about company culture or experiences, but I can tell you this. Right now, if you were to give a book of blank paper and you were to give them a pen or a pencil, and I know I'm going old school now because now we just sit on the laptop and type, right? But I'm going old school. And I'm saying, if I were to say to you, write your story of your experiences in your company culture, I will tell you right now, we would have many best-selling books being written about company culture and people's experiences. Some people are living company. In fact, we all living company culture. For some people, that culture is a comedy. For some people, that company culture, that story would be an action, or it would be a thriller or a suspense novel book that they would be writing. For other people, it would be a complete horror story, Because currently, right now, there are people who are listening to my voice, Inga, who are suicidal, who are depressed, who are at their wits' end, who do not know what to do because of the culture that they find themselves in. There are people right now who have got no peace, no joy, no happiness, and they are going through the level of toxicity in their company culture where life is absolutely miserable for them because of the culture that they find themselves. And I often say this is hard for you to love your life while you hate your job. I'll say that one again. It's hard for you to love your life while you hate your job. But here's the thing. If you were to define what people hate about their job, it's not their job. It's not even a company. It's something relating to either an individual or individuals who are making their company culture intolerable, their life unbearable, and it boils down to how people are treating each other in the workplace. Listen, it's fine people can put up with a difficult task, right? With KPIs, where it's difficult and it's problematic and there's challenges, and people can put up with it. The thing that is causing people to have sleepless nights, be on medication, go to psychologists, to deal with the company and the company culture is because of the people in the culture, and more specifically leaders and managers in the company culture that is abusive, toxic, intolerable, and causing people to feel the way that they feel. You cannot talk about company culture without talking about the leaders of the culture and the creators of the culture. So I want to throw it back to you very quickly, Inge, and just in terms of the questions that I've answered. Why is there a need to talk about company culture the way that people are talking about culture? And is there anything even wrong with company culture? And if so, what is actually wrong with company culture? I know you have a response to it. I know the audience that is watching and listening to us have stories that they can tell us as well. And I say all of that before I can actually get into some nitty-gritty in terms of character and company culture.
So, I mean, Shawn, gosh, I resonate with everything that you are talking about. And I think when it comes to culture, and I'm mindful of how I'm going to respond to your question, because I think the temptation is always to be very theoretical, because whenever people talk about culture, we want to talk about all these different philosophies and the infamous iceberg. I don't think anybody who has not worked in culture or has sat in a workshop about culture has not seen that iceberg.
Yes.
But I want to bring culture to a more simplistic term or an approach or a picture. So for me, culture, and the way I describe culture, or like to describe culture, is the personality of a business. And I think the reason why there's such a focus around culture these days, I think just as society, as human beings, as people, because of a confluence of different things. There's the internet. We're much more educated. We're much more in touch with different sources of information. So our jargon, our vocabulary has most certainly grown. In terms of when we're in a corporate environment, there's terminology that we're more familiar with now. People-centered culture and human-centered leadership and servant leadership. And you will find that it's not just people in HR or human resources or people experience officers, as I like to call them, that speaks about these things. It's now the normal Joe soap, if I can put it that way, in the corporate space. So people are much more vocal, and they're using the terminology that we know, and that is why there is this increase and sensitivity to culture and what culture is about. I think added to that, and maybe it's a theory of mine, I think typically when people are trying to understand themselves, and because I'm so focused on mindset work and growth mindset work, I feel that people generally these days are trying to figure themselves out. There's much more a sense of I don't know, there's this me culture these days in terms of what's good for me. What type of environment do I want to what type of environment do I want to place myself in, where I can brings out, first of all, the best in me, and that is where the sensitivity to culture comes in, and where I can actually live my purpose, because there's a lot of that type of language also doing the rounds. And then yes, so that kind of brings it to the point where people know viscerally and inherently that there's an environment they do not resonate with and will not bring out the best in them. The negative side of that is that people, and this is where a fixed mindset comes in, is that people then quickly realize, as they're educating themselves around different types of culture, different types of leadership, People are also becoming a bit more obsessed with psychometric assessments or personality assessments.
Yes, yes.
So all of these pieces of information is making people much more aware of, oh, no, I'm in the wrong environment. Now, all of a sudden, you're inherently feeling negatively. Or sorry,
Mhm.
all of a sudden, you're inherently feeling very negative. You're feeling depressed. You're feeling down because now you feel like you're stuck. Now you feel like you are arrested in a space, in an environment that's not
Mhm.
conducive to my purpose and me
Yes.
living my purpose. And I think what a lot of leadership or a lot of leaders need to also understand, and I hope you touch on this, Shawn, is that I do not believe that culture is it's so crystallized that
Yes.
it can't be changed, or it can't,
Yeah.
because I see it as personality, a personality construct of a corporate environment. I do believe that
Yes.
there's two sets or levels of culture. There's the explicit culture where it's stated, where it's put up on walls,
Yeah.
in a company building or whatever, um, and that's usually where leadership or your C-suite go some way off on a distant destination, and they come up with a
On
culture
a retreat, to go
statement.
on a retreat, yes.
Yes. um, but then there's the sort of underlying or the subculture that is implied, right? It's not stated explicitly, and yet it's that implied, almost not sort of stated explicitly, that people feel the most.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it is as simple as how we treat each other.
Absolutely.
That is for me how I see culture, how it's shaped. And so, because when people talk about culture, now that they are faced and exposed to all these different culture studies, etc., they've got the jargon. But in the past, or even somebody who doesn't read up on these things, it's as simple as saying, I don't feel good. I don't
Mhm.
I don't feel, there's a clashing of values. And that clashing of values is actually the culture. It's
Absolutely.
actually, yeah, where we don't recognize that how we treat one another, that
Mhm.
reciprocal um, treatment, that empathetic treatment towards each other, that just being aware of ourselves, how we operate, how we speak. If the sensitivity to those things are not there, and
Mhm.
we just bulldozing forward,
Mhm.
yes, your culture is going to break down. Um, and it's I think it's something that there isn't a start and an end point when it comes to culture. It's a continuous thing. And so um, there needs to be this integration and sensitivity to culture in
Mhm.
everything that leadership does, in everything that every other employee does in their day-to-day lives. So, and I think that's the biggest mistake that we make with culture,
Mhm.
that it's not the same with change management. It's not
Mhm.
something isolated. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Yes. Yeah.
It's ingrained, it's
It's
integrated. So
inescapable. Yeah.
yes. So when we're measuring, for example, KPIs, when we measuring our leaders, when we're measuring employees, we have to make sure that those things are also part of those metrics, so that it's
Absolutely.
always top of mind for people. So yeah,
Absolutely. Okay, interesting. And I think we've all got stories of culture experiences, because we all have experienced culture and we all are experiencing culture.
yeah,
And I like what you said about culture, where the culture is the personality of an organization. All right,
yeah,
it's inescapable.
yeah,
People are always talking about culture fit, especially during
yeah,
the recruitment and selection process, about culture fit. And I think on LinkedIn recently there was a discussion or a post made about culture fit, and whether a candidate is fit for a particular culture. And so I responded to that, and I'm saying, but is the company a fit for the culture of the individual?
Yes.
Because there's an assumption that culture is healthy and good to go. And now we need to make sure that those that we are recruiting fit in with this culture. Let me tell you this, Inga, people know this. And I smile to myself because, back in the day when I was an employee, when I went for an interview on one particular job, I walked in and literally the first thing the receptionist said to me, "Are you sure you want to work in this company?" She didn't know me from above, so all that she said was, "Shawn, are you sure you want to work in this company?" But obviously, because at that time, desperate for a job, need a job, I thought, what's this lady? It literally took about 2 weeks for me to understand what the young lady was actually trying to say. But let me say this, Inga. Culture is inescapable. Culture is the make or break of success of employees and of a company. We've had many, and listen, it's the story, it's an everyday story of great talent leaving companies, great talent leaving. And companies are pulling out their hair because they want to know, but why are they leaving? When we do our exit interviews, we realize this is a problem, that is a problem, etc. And we're not getting to the nitty gritty as to what is the real problem. And people are not talking about this because they don't realize the connection between character and company culture. All right. And this is the catchphrase for our company, for our program, or rather our leadership and character development offerings that we have, is that character creates company culture. I'm going to say that again. Character creates company culture. Pause, trademark. Character creates company culture.
Absolutely.
So if the question is asked, what is company culture? And you and I both know company culture, and there are many definitions, very theoretical and academic exercises and definitions on what is company culture. Company culture is really the way people feel while working in the company. It's how they feel, how they are treated, are they valued, are they appreciated? Yes, they get paid for the time and the effort that they put in, but literally at the end of the day is how people treat each other when they come within a company culture. So if people are not treated the way that they needed to be treated, it speaks to what? The culture, right? Something now begins to turn off within a company culture. And I normally say, as an expression of what company culture is, every home, every family, every household has a company culture. Sorry, has a culture. If I were to come into a particular home and there are people in the home, I can pick up the culture of the home based on the atmosphere vibe, because another word for culture is atmosphere, vibe, how people get along with each other. If the father in the house is abusive, you can pick that up very quickly because there's a level of tension, fear, intimidation in the home. If the people in the home, be it the children, the mother, the father, whoever it is, they are disrespectful to each other, they don't appreciate each other and the way that they talk to each other. If you come into that environment, you can already pick up the culture in that environment. The same thing applies within company setup, within a company environment, is how people relate to each other, treat each other, how they make each other feel, etc. Now, let me just make a few statements here, which is going to be quite interesting for our audience out there, Inga, and it is this. Firstly, I said character creates company culture. Character creates company culture. When I say character, I'm talking about the individual character of the person that creates company culture, specifically the character of the leaders. The character of the leader, who is the culture creator, has a critical role in the outcome or the end result of what the culture is. But let me make a few statements that will be quite interesting for people. Company culture does not need to change. Company culture is the result of change. I'm going to say that one again. Company culture does not need to change. Company culture is the result of change. Do not blame company culture for what the character of the culture creators is responsible for. So we've got this whole vibe in this country and around the world where culture needs to change. We need to improve culture, develop culture, change culture, make culture. You're making it seem as if culture is the black sheep of the family. Let me put this out there for all of those who are involved in change management, culture development, those executives out there, those in training and development within the companies, and they want to change culture. Stop trying to change culture. There is nothing wrong with culture. That culture needs to be changed. You are changing the wrong thing. Your time, your effort, your money, your investments is trying to solve something that is not a problem. Culture is not a problem that needs to be solved. Yeah, but Shawn, the people are leaving the company because the culture is bad, and people are unhappy, whatever the case is. Culture does not need to change. If character creates company culture, Inga, and culture is toxic, you don't change the culture to change the culture. You change the character, the creators of the culture. It is at that level that you change the culture. And it's at that level that culture actually creates. So have a look at this. If you come into my home and I'm the one who creates the atmosphere in my home, but the atmosphere is tense, the atmosphere is abusive, the atmosphere is toxic, the atmosphere is unproductive. Those things that are mentioned are not things that need to change. The atmosphere does not need to change. What needs to change? It's the person who is in charge of the atmosphere, the vibe, the culture, the productivity, the health, the wealth of the environment. It is that individual that needs to change. Why? Because the culture comes from that individual. So I'm saying this. Don't change culture because culture does not need to be changed. Culture is the result of change. So when individuals realize the connection between character and company culture, you would actually realize that in order for us to change company culture, and whoever's listening to this podcast, what needs to change in the company culture. You know the way that you want to feel. You know the way you don't want to feel. You know what is right. Hopefully you know what is right and what is wrong. You know what is productive, what is unproductive. You know how you want to feel. You know the vibe that you want, and you know what you don't want. Let me say this. In order for you to have companies, I'm speaking specifically now to culture creators, to executives, and those involved in change management, etc., etc. If you want to improve your culture, improve the character of the culture creators. If you want to change your company culture, change the character of the culture creators. If you want a better company culture, make the character of the company creators better. Because once the individual changes, the culture around them changes. What's around you does not need change. It's you that impacts what's around you that needs change. So I'm going to have to say that again. Company culture does not need change. Company culture is the result of change. Now, I've mentioned this before, and I'm going to say this again. Show me the character of your leaders, Inga, and I will show you the condition of your company culture. I will show you the condition of your employee mental health. I will show you the employee morale and your employee motivation. I will show you the quality of workplace relationships. I will show you the happiness, the loyalty of your staff, and I will show you the productivity of your staff by showing me what? Showing me the character of your leaders, because the character of your leaders, and when we talk about the character of your leaders, it is how leaders treat people, relate to people, make them feel. And we've talked about this in the previous sessions, and I don't want to regurgitate and go back to many of the things that we've said before, but you cannot do leadership development without doing character development. You cannot develop a leader. You cannot be a leader without developing your character. Because leadership is the character of the leader. Character is the foundation of leadership. You cannot change leadership and improve leadership without changing and developing the character of the person that is the leader. Something else that is of interest within company culture is that leaders with a character problem becomes a culture problem. Leaders with a character problem becomes a culture problem. And Inga, at this point, if I can just talk briefly to the audience that is watching us out there specifically, for those of you that have left company cultures, I want you to think about why you left a company. And yes, money sometimes is the biggest contributor as to why people leave a company. They're not earning enough. But ask yourself, why did you leave a company before? What was the reasons? I can guarantee you right now that for the most part, many people watching me will pinpoint it down to a singular individual or individuals. But if you were to go more granular and ask, what was it about that individual or individuals that made you leave? I can almost guarantee you, Inga, no one leaves a company because the leaders lack skill. No one leaves a company earning a salary, having the security of a job. Nobody leaves a company because they're not happy with the level of skill of their leaders. They don't leave a company because the leader is uneducated, not smart, not intelligent, not bright, not gifted, not talented, do not have qualifications. No, all of those things are in place. So those are never the reasons why individuals leave companies. If you were to once again get into the details of why people leave secure jobs, secure salaries, either to go to other companies where they've got a job waiting for them, or even go and be unemployed. How bad does your company culture need to be that somebody chooses to lose their salary, to lose that security, and to go to home and sit and be unemployed? How bad must a company and its culture be? I will get to the answer to that right now. The reason why people are leaving company cultures is because of the way their leadership and their management is treating them. Many leaders and many managers are the reason and the root cause why great talent has left company cultures. And if you're a leader and you're a manager who's watching this right now, you can probably identify with this because you could possibly, and maybe let me answer it in the form of a question. Are you possibly that leader or that manager who is the reason why some of your staff have left? If there's a high staff turnover, I can almost guarantee you right now, the biggest reason for it is the leader and the manager. And there's, it's knowledge within industry that when people leave company cultures, they need to look to the leader or the immediate supervisor first, because that probably is the reason why they are leaving. So if we were to ask ourselves right now, why are people leaving companies, company cultures, and why are they not surviving in company cultures? And for those that are in company cultures and they need to be medicated to survive company cultures, let me ask this question, Inge. I put this as a post on LinkedIn quite some time ago. What is wrong with company culture that people need to be medicated to survive company culture? What is wrong with society? What is wrong with companies? What is wrong with company cultures? What is wrong with the leaders, the culture creators who are the leaders in company culture? My question is this: what is wrong that your employees need to be medicated to survive you? Think about that. Is that normal? Is that normal for people to be medicated to survive another human being? That's not normal. Who in their right mind wants to live a life where they need to take medication, pills, injections, see psychologists, go for therapy, be multiple tablets on any given day just to survive an individual in their work, so that they don't lose their mind, so that they don't get to the point of hopelessness, helplessness, and commit suicide, which many people have already done? What is wrong with people in our company cultures and leaders that they are so horrific? And I use the word horrific because if somebody needs to be medicated to survive you, sir, survive you, ma'am, something is seriously wrong, that somebody needs to be medicated to survive your leadership. Let me just cool myself and calm myself down, because I know this is something, it's serious. And I speak the way that I speak, with the tone that I speak, because I myself, and I've got family members who have been survivors of abusive, toxic leaders. I know of people in the years that I've trained companies, government departments, corporates all over South Africa, and I'm telling you the same story that I hear all of the time. My manager is abusive, my leader is abusive, toxic, intimidates, victimizes me, abuses me. I cannot stand my company culture. I want to leave, but I got no other jobs. I'm going to have to survive this. I'm going to have to stay. I've got family, I've got a husband, I've got a wife, I've got children. I need to put bread. People are being medicated so that they can survive their leaders and their company culture. And Inge, that is not normal. If your stomach turns, and we've said this before, and there's the saying and quotation out there, the test of company culture is how your employees feel on Sunday, how their stomachs feel on Sunday before they need to go to work on a Monday. And it shouldn't be that way. And I've also put my own post on LinkedIn, and I put out some content right there where I've said, and I've made the statements that it's Sunday. And I put this on many occasions on a Sunday, and I posted it and I said it's Sunday. And for many people right now, their weekend has ended. And it's not because the weekend has ended, but because their peace has ended on a Sunday. Sunday morning, Sunday midday, Sunday afternoon. Their peace has ended. Why? Because Monday is coming very, very, very soon. And so already they started to think about Monday. But here's the thing. What are they thinking about specifically? They're not thinking about the amount of work that they need to do. They're not thinking about the KPIs that they need to fulfill. They're thinking about their deliverables. They're thinking about an individual that they need to survive Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, until they have off over the weekend again. They're thinking about people that they need to survive. Let me say this, Inge, as long as our employees' mindset is in a survival mode, they cannot be as productive as they are designed to be. They will never be as productive as they need to be. Why? Because they are surviving. People are thinking more about how to survive their manager rather than being productive. They are in a complete survival mode. So having said that, let me get back to my point about character creates company culture. And let me make this statement to managers and leaders out there. Do not expect your employees to give their best when you are at your worst. Do not expect employees to give their best when managers are at their worst. I've made this statement before and it's worth repeating. Skills development at the expense of character development produces a culture of educated bullies. And many people can identify with that one, Inga, because they are working with educated bullies, unfortunately. Okay? They are living and they are working with educated bullies. Let me repeat this. Company culture does not need change. The culture creators need change. Character creates company culture, and do not blame the culture for what the culture creators is responsible for. I'm going to throw it back to you in a few minutes' time, Inga, but let me say this. Another statement that is worth mentioning: of what real value are you as a leader and as a manager if your skill set solves problems but your character causes even more? Of what real value are you to a culture, your company culture, if your skill set solves problems but your character causes even more? How's that for a long pause?
So the pause for me is very important, because what you've just talked about, I think it's extremely important, and I don't think people take time to reflect and to really digest. Because when we talk about culture, people are very quick to talk about everything that is wrong, and I think sometimes, not sometimes, we have to take a very balanced approach to things. So I do believe that there's good and there's bad. I do not think that any founder, that any business owner starts off a business or creates a business with the intent of getting to a point where we just paying lip service when we are putting values out there, and we're putting values on the wall that speaks about our people, and we respect our people and all of that. And it gets to a point where it's so PC, right? It's so politically correct, because that is what a good company should be about, because we want to attract our A players out there in the job market to come and work for us, right? But ultimately, at the end of the day, and no executive or no founder of a business is actually going to put the real reason out there of why we're wanting to get people in, is because we want to beef up our bottom line, right?
Yes.
But what individuals, what people are experiencing is an inauthentic culture, because this is what the values say, this is what our vision says and our mission says, but it's not about that. It's about, let's call a spade a spade. It's greed. Greed is what is driving a business. Greed, market share is what is driving a business. And I'm not saying don't divorce the two, right? Because you have to make the profits. You need to bring the revenue in, because you need to pay your A players, your employees, the salaries for them to eke out a living, right?
Yeah.
So I think when it comes to culture, what is very important is that leadership needs to understand we have to take a very balanced approach. So it's not just about, in my mind at least, it's not just about as important as character is, yes, right? Because don't ever forget, don't lose sight of forest for the trees. So always have this view of it's your people that's important. It's the people driving things. It is the people that is helping to run the business. It's the
Yes.
people interacting and engaging with customers out there. But then at the same time, um, do not muzzle the ox that is doing work for you, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
So you have to be sure that as a leader, the environment that you are creating needs to be conducive for your people that you are trying to attract and you want to keep in the business, that environment is conducive to help them actually produce, to help them function in a space where they
Absolutely.
want to come to, right?
Absolutely.
You don't want to see employees sitting in a parking lot bawling their eyes out before their day even starts.
Yeah.
So culture, and I agree with you, culture is an output of the state of leadership, right? If a leader is not consistent in their behavior, if a leader gets um, pushed around by the market and what the market is doing, because that is what is driving them, that is what is that's where their focus is,
Yes. Yes.
you're always going to have a toxic culture, and your culture is the barometer of the state of your leadership.
Absolutely.
Attrition is the barometer of a bad culture, which is the barometer of bad leadership. And so we must never ever forget that your people are the important elements of a business. So often when I used to run culture surveys, the and there's the usual things that people complain about, right? It's salary,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
um yeah, so salary, unfair treatment, blah blah blah. But the crux of it all is my leader does not listen.
Mm.
So we need to have leadership that is sensitive to people's input, it's sensitive to their employees, because a leader can shift, it can change. And as you said, they influence the atmosphere.
Absolutely.
So if your leader is not sensitive to the people atmosphere,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and the atmosphere they're creating, if they're not sensitive to how it impacts their people, because in my mind everything is a system, so everything is systemic. So by the time you're seeing a bad culture or entropy in the culture, where culture becomes a negative, it's already so far down the line. So
Absolutely.
now it becomes difficult to peel away the layers to figure out, okay, where does it all, where's the issue?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
usually where the issue sits, nobody wants to face. So
True.
we would rather bring in a change manager. We would rather want to bring in a consultant guru that is
Yeah.
going to shift your culture.
Yeah.
But if you still have the bad apple in the
Absolutely. The
cart,
poisonous lily. The poisonous lily. There we go.
so it's as simple, it's as, for me at least, Sean, maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but it's as simple as, and I'm going to go back to coaching because, that's just my line of business, but it goes back to helping a leader understand
Mm.
that you are the one impacting,
Absolutely.
and it does not mean that you are weak if you're actually listening to your team,
Mm.
and getting impact from them, or sorry, getting sort of feedback from them. And there's nothing wrong with shifting the strategy a little bit or
Yeah. Yeah.
shifting the plan a little bit. Because remember, A culture for me is a confluence of the people in that system, in that ecosystem, because people's personalities influence the environment.
Absolutely.
Your state of mind influences how you see the environment. So there is going to be that ebb and flow when it comes to culture and a healthy culture. I think what makes a leader a good leader is that they are willing to listen.
Absolutely.
And that they are willing to allow their team the agency to actually, I would almost want to say, like, put life into the ideas, the creativity. And granted, not all ideas are brilliant ideas, but when your people start feeling they've got agency to contribute, when they've got agency to um, just take ownership of their
Absolutely.
space, you will see that the barometer when you're measuring culture starts taking an upswing.
Absolutely. No, you're so on point. You're absolutely on point. And I like the statement that you made that it is simple. It is simple. We make it harder than it actually is. We make it
We're
harder than it actually
overcomplicating
is.
it.
It's like this, Inga. What do people want? Find out what people want. Find out how people want to be led. And put that leader in their lives who would lead them they want to be led. Don't ask a leader how to lead people if the leader himself has not been a good follower. If you want to know how to lead people, I'm on point with you. Listen to your people because your people will teach leaders how to lead. We've got this notion in society that leaders know it all, have it all, have experienced it all. They are the visionaries. My people must follow me. I'll say to you right now, sir, ma'am, if you're a leader, listen to your people because your people will teach you how to be a leader. You know what I was thinking of doing at some point, Inga, in the future? You know, we have conferences for leaders, right? We have conferences for leaders, and leaders come and they share insights, etc., how to lead the people. So we have a gathering of leaders. Okay, and back on the farm, we've got the workers.
Yeah.
And we're sitting in these fancy hotels and conference venues, eating, drinking, and talking about how to lead those people. And we've
And
got
talking
leaders.
about our family culture while the
Exactly.
family is sitting on the
While the
farm.
family is sitting out there, working, laboring, slaving.
Yeah.
All right. And so now we've got leaders telling leaders how to be leaders. I will say that again. We've got leaders telling leaders how to be leaders, but no one's listening to the followers to hear from the followers how to be leaders. No one is a greater teacher to a leader than a follower. Listen to your followers and ask your followers, what leader do you want me to be? I can almost guarantee you, Inga, I can put my head on the block and I tell you, if you were to have a conversation with an individual right now, and I challenge any HR department, any HR person, those within leadership development, within companies, and you want to change your company culture, start by doing this. Go and ask your people, what kind of leader do they want? Ask them to define what kind of leader do they want. I can almost guarantee you that majority of their criteria and their need list will consist of character traits that they want in their leader.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Shawn, sorry to cut your word, but I think it's again, I'm gonna go back to saying how the solution is actually so simple that if leadership can understand, if you take the time to listen to your people,
Yes.
the benefit, the knock-on effect is, like when you throw a stone into a pond, it's a
Yes.
ripple effect. And I'll say why, because again, we're an ecosystem. Understand, leader, that when you take the time to hear out ideas from your people,
Absolutely.
and you know what, you already make such a massive shift when your teams know that, wow, my leader actually takes the time to hear me. Because understand, every employee understands that if I work hard, the company will survive. The company will thrive. I will have a salary every month.
Absolutely.
I will have a livelihood. I'll be able to take care of my family. So no employee wants to see a company tank.
Of course.
However, when you take it from the perspective of leadership from C-suite, what's driving them is what they are seeing is market share, profits,
Yes.
all of that. Nobody's saying it's not important.
Yes.
But when you have got things like greed and leading your thought, leading your mindset,
Yes.
and you think of your people as the workforce to sort of meet and feed the greed that is out there, you're allowing the tail to wag the dog. That's the better analogy. So take the time to sit and engage with your people.
Yeah.
If you do that, I can promise you, and it's gonna feel counterintuitive to any business manager, to any person who has got commercial targets on their KPIs. But I promise you, take the time to sit and work with your people.
Yeah.
The knock-on effect, the benefit, you'll be amazed, is actually where
Absolutely.
you're going to see your customer base grows, your profits will increase because
Absolutely.
your people feel like they are being valued.
Here
But
we
our
go.
leadership focuses on the wrong output,
The
so they're
profits.
putting
It's more about the profits and productivity.
they're putting the wrong emphasis on the wrong
Yeah.
syllable.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. So you made a statement early on that triggered something, and I thought in my mind,
Sure.
which I want to pick up on. I think it's common knowledge, Inga, that one of the greatest and most important and most critical business skill is the ability to manage workplace relationships, right? So it doesn't really matter how competent, skilled, educated, and qualified your teams are, including your leader, if they cannot build and maintain healthy relationships,
Yes.
It will affect company culture, productivity, teamwork, and the company's success. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a few minutes and get into the importance of character and company culture. And there are a couple of levels that I want to speak to. And I know we're going to put up a little bit of a slide while we're chatting. A little slide will pop up in a few moments' time. Healthy character is a non-negotiable ingredient for success that will enable employees to establish and maintain mutually beneficial relationships. Healthy company culture will increase performance dramatically. Understanding and getting along with people is an extremely difficult task. And I'm sure you can agree with that.
Yeah.
Understanding and getting along with people is an extremely difficult task. We employ people and we assume that and specifically leaders, okay, I'm talking people in general, our employees, because employees contribute to company culture as well. But the reason why I'm focusing more on leadership and managers is because leadership creates the culture. Employees don't create culture. Employees live, maintain, and build the culture that the leaders have created. So there's only one creator, and that's the leader. The leader creates culture. The team maintains, builds, and sustains the culture that the leader has created. So understanding getting along with people is extremely difficult. We employ people, and based on their qualifications, their level of experience and skills, we think that they will be successful in building relationships and creating wonderful company culture. However, that is definitely not a guarantee. And I normally say, Inga, that company culture is not just an accumulation of skill sets. It's not just an accumulation of competencies. It's not just an accumulation of talents and gifts and knowledge and expertise. And so I'll wrap it up in the word competencies. Company culture is not an accumulation, not just an accumulation of competencies. It's an accumulation of individual characters.
Yep.
It's an accumulation of individual characters. If you got a team of 10 people, you're guaranteed to have a team of 10 individual competencies, various skills, expertise, talent, knowledge, whatever. What we don't realize is this, especially within our recruitment and hiring process, because we don't hire character, we hire skill, we hire competence, and we neglect character. Even when we have hired them and they are now employees, we don't develop character, we develop skills, we develop competencies, because we think that is where the money is. The money is in the greater the skill, the greater the person, the greater the skill, the greater the productivity, the greater the skill, the greater the profits. And that's not true. If you're neglecting the character and the character development of your employees and of your leaders, you are missing the important ingredient. In fact, it is the foundation of successful leaders, successful employees, and successful company cultures. So I know there's going to come a little bit of a pop-up on the screen, but let me say this. We all want company success, right? Companies want company success. The executives, the owners, the shareholders, the key role players, the executives of the company want company success. Now, what is company success? I'm not going to define company success, because success means different things to different people, different industries. Yeah. For those in public service, in government departments, it's about service delivery, while for others, it's about profits. All right. So whatever success looks and means to you, you want it. As a company, you want success, right? You start a company because you want to be successful, whether it's success for money, whether it's success in influencing people, changing people's lives, service delivery, whatever the case is. Let's put it under the umbrella of success. We all want that. Every employee that you employ them to be what? Successful, to contribute to the what? Success of the company. And once again, I want people to pay attention to the little pop-up that is on the screen. You can see success is at the top. So there are 4 stages, 4 levels, 4 steps. And I'm going to show you through a simple, Inge, you said a few moments ago, you know, this whole thing about building culture, creating culture, sustaining culture, it really is, it's a simple concept. Yeah. It's a simple concept, and I'm going to show how simple it is. But what I'm going to show is I'm going to show how character creates company culture, and how individual character of the leader and character of the team members, the employees, contributes to the success that we are talking about. So we've got success. We've established right now we all want success. But what I want to do is I want to skip the 2 in-between stages or steps, and I want to go to the ground level. All right. And let's make that level individual character. Let's make that individual character. So we got success. Let's miss the 2 steps. Let's go to individual character, which is the foundation. I will say this: individual character of the employees and of the leaders. Character is the foundation of success. Character is the foundation of your company's success. Sir, ma'am, whoever you are that's watching this, know this. Character, individual character, employee character, leadership character is the foundation of company success. You want success? You got to lay the right foundation. Here's the thing. Inge, we've had this discussion in the last 3 podcasts that we've done. Character is not a feature in companies. Character development is not a feature in company cultures. Companies have ignored, disregard character development and individual character. And we've already established how critical character is to the life of a leader, to the life of an individual, to the life of a woman leader, youth leader, anyone in leadership. And today we're talking about how critical character is to company culture. That's indisputable. That's undeniable. I'm not even going to go back there and try to convince anyone. Leadership, or rather, character is the foundation of leadership, and it's the foundation of success. In between, there are critical steps, which I'm going to talk about. Have a look at this. Individual character determines the level of relationships. So if you were to look on the screen next to you, you would see that the next step is relationships, right? Relationships. Individual character produces the quality of relationships. So if you want healthy relationships, get the character right. We are in relationships with people at work. You cannot get away from the fact that you're in relationships with people. So put your eye on the screen. Look at the steps that I have. We have character, individual character. the level of character, the health of the character determines the health of the relationships. If the character is toxic, Inga, the relationships are going to be toxic. If you put two people in a room, no matter how skilled, intelligent, bright, qualified they are, if you put them in a room and you put them and you say to them, build relationships, let me tell you something. It is not the level of skill. It's not what they know, where they come from, their life experiences, their work experience. That is not what is going to determine the health of the relationship or the nature of the relationship. It's the what? It's the individual character that is going to determine the relationships. Why? Because relationships is built on the respect, on integrity, on trust, on value, on compassion, on self-control. All of those things that we know build relationships. So where there's no respect, it impacts the relationship. Where there's no integrity, it impacts the relationship. Where there's no trust, it impacts the relationship. Yeah. Where there's no value, it impacts the relationship. So in essence, relationships is built on individual character. So if you want healthy relationships, you build healthy character. Inga, listen, it's simple. You cannot put two people who've got weakness of character and expect them to build strong relationships. When it's 2 or 20 or 200 or 2,000, however big the workforce is, you cannot put weakness of character together in a department and expect them to build healthy relationships. Because here's what companies are telling their employees: build healthy relationships, respect one another, value each other, whatever. But you're not building the character in the people that produces the things that you want. So we have relationships. People are working with each other on a daily basis. Now, I'm saying the level of the quality of the relationships is rooted and founded and grounded in the individual character of the people in the relationships. Because the character, Inga, that I bring to my relationship with you will determine how I treat you. The Absolutely. Character that I bring into my relationship with you, whether it's a workplace relationship, personal relationship, social relationship, professional relationship, my character is going to determine how I treat you. My character is going to determine whether I respect you, value you, appreciate you, acknowledge you, whether I'm going to empower you, build you, make you feel the best person on the planet. It is my character that is going to determine that. Whether I break you, bully you, intimidate you, victimize you, make you feel like nothing, make you feel that you're a worker, you must just be productive. It is my character that is going to determine the relationship that I have with you. So let me establish this right now for everybody. Character determines relationships. The reason why people divorce each other, besides the fact that, you know, there's infidelity within the relationship and there might be money issues, whatever, many people, whether it's a marriage or whether it's just a relationship, the reason why people leave people is because of the way people treat people. It's because you don't treat me right. If you and I were to look at relationships, whether it's professional or personal, if you were to figure out why you left that relationship or why you decided to leave the relationship, it will boil down to this. It will boil down to the character of the person. Meaning what? The way that they treated you, how they made you feel, what they did do that they shouldn't have done, and what they should have done that they didn't do. So, first step, personal character. That personal character determines the nature of workplace relationships. Now have a look at this. The next step in the ladder to success is company culture. Relationships determine company culture. The quality, the nature, the health of the relationships will determine the health, the state, and the nature of what? Company culture. And this is why we're talking today. We're talking about character and company culture. Yeah. Inga, your relationship with your colleagues, your management, that right there will define the culture. If the relationships is toxic, can you have a healthy culture? Absolutely not. The nature of the relationship, workplace relationships will determine the culture. This thing on relationship is what births the culture. Yeah. So if you want to give birth to a healthy culture, you got to make sure that the relationship is right. But have a look at this. For all the relationship to be right, you got to make sure what is right. The individual character is right. And I hope my audience is looking at the screen and they can see the steps that I have and the levels that I have. So we got individual character, the foundation of success, which is the last ladder. The individual character produces the nature of the relationship. The relationship produces the company culture. So the nature of your character that you bring into your workplace relationships, your character, my character, Tom's character, Impumi's character, Steve's character, and we're all part of the same team. It is that individual character, and it's the relationship that is formed from that character. That relationship will give birth to the what? The culture that we find ourselves in. So culture is a result of what? Relationships. So if the relationships are abusive, so too is the company culture. If the relationships are toxic, so too is the company culture. So how do you get the culture right? You don't change the culture. You don't get the culture right. You get the other steps right. And the other steps, when the other steps are in place, it produces the culture that you want. Now have a look at this. When the relationships are healthy, and you're intentional to build healthy relationships. And I'm saying this to leaders, to managers, to those executives that are not interested in the relationships of their companies because they're more interested with the productivity and the profits. I'm saying to you, stop right here. If you get the relationship right, you'll get the culture right. And employees, when they see and they sense and they are part of contributing to a healthy culture, productivity takes care of itself, profits take care of itself, success takes care of itself. Why? Because you're getting the right things. You cannot bake a cake and not put the right ingredients and expect to have a wonderful cake. Who wants to eat a cake that doesn't have the right ingredient? Sorry, as much as I love cake, keep your cake. You got to do the right things right first. Process involved for an end product. Do the right things first, and when you get those things right, there's a process, then the end product should be the way that it needs to be. Now have a look at this. Individual character produces the relationships, which produces the company culture. And check this out, Inge. When the culture is right, the culture, because the people have got the right character and they've got the right relationships, healthy relationships, awesome relationships, not perfect relationships. There may be problems, challenges, whatever, absolutely fine. But because the character is in place, the character knows how to deal with problems and conflict within the relationships, and it knows how to produce healthy company culture. And you know what healthy company culture produces? Company success, which we initially mentioned right at the beginning. That right there is the formula for success right there. Don't work to be successful. Work to get the character right. When the character is right, the relationships will be right. The culture will be right. Company culture. Now have a look at this. The reason why culture produces success is that when people are happy in a culture, they will perform, they will be productive, they will be their best, they will give their best. Why? Because they are treated in the way that they want to be treated. The reason why there's high staff turnover, high absentee rates in a company, the reason why people are looking for reasons and excuses and faking doctors' notes and faking illnesses and sickness. Why? Because they want to spend as little time as possible in the relationships and in the company culture, and all of that impacts on what? On the success of any company. So here is the formula that I'm giving to our audience out there, which forms part of our leadership and character development program, which is this: let's get the character right, because when the character is right, the character produces healthy relationships, the relationships produce healthy culture, and the culture produces the success that we want. So once again, ask yourself, do you want to be successful as a company? Do you want to be successful? If the answer is yes, build the character. Build the character. But Shawn, my company, my employees, my leaders are already highly skilled, intelligent, bright, and smart and gifted. Well done for you. You've done a good job of that. But your people are not just their skill sets. They are the missing ingredient is character. And so when you get the character right, you get the culture right. And when you get the culture right, you get success right. There is no healthy culture without healthy character, Inge. There is no strong culture without strong character. Strong skill sets, as strong as the talent and the gifts that you have in your company is, it will never be strong enough to compensate for the weakness of character that is needed to build a healthy company culture. The missing ingredient, and I know, Inge, you said this now in the previous podcast with the youth leadership character development, the missing ingredient in leadership, in youth leadership development, as with women leadership development, as with leadership development, the missing ingredient in leadership development and in creating a strong company culture is building strong individual character.
You said something earlier, Shawn, and I just wanted to emphasize it again, is that, and I love this formula that you have. It's like a step change, right?
It is.
Leading up to healthy cultures, starting with character. And you said something that I just thought was so poignant, where a lot of leaders or companies with good leadership will say that we've year in year out we get great scores on our employee net promoter score. We have amazing, our culture is very healthy, our attrition is low, and that's awesome, like yay for you. But guess what? Continue. That doesn't mean you've arrived, right?
Yes, definitely.
So continue with what you are doing, because you'll be so surprised and so shocked that when you become complacent, nothing drops quicker than your culture when you take your eye off the game, right? When you take your eye off the ball. So continue with what you are doing. And when I speak to coaching and growth mindset coaching, a lot of people would say that, but there's nothing wrong with me. Like I'm performing well, I'm doing great. And I'm like, yes, that's exactly when you need the coach, because you need the coach you can only lift higher and you can soar higher when you're already soaring, right?
Yes.
But your coach comes along with you and helps you to actually achieve even greater heights, because it's more difficult when you're parked, when you are stuck in one space, and you're not in a position, or you're not in a posture of momentum, of movement. Then it's much more difficult for a coach to actually partner with you, because guess what? We now first have to deal with toxic thoughts. We first have to deal with a toxic mindset, a fixed mindset.
Yes.
But what I love about what you are saying is, yes, you want to be in that space of momentum, of if you are soaring high as a company and your culture reflects that, like we said earlier on, your culture is the barometer of good character, of good leadership. That's exactly when you need this type of work that you are offering, because guess what? The effort then you then put into it it's not as much as what you would have needed if you're starting from a place of toxicity.
Absolutely. So on point. Absolutely so on point. So in other words, when you do the right things first, it saves you time, money, effort in the future.
Yes. So work smarter, not harder, people.
I couldn't have said it better. Absolutely. So at the end of the day, Inge, you know what? I think leaders and managers want to be successful, and I think employees want to be successful. I think companies want, if I look at the level, companies want healthy company cultures. All right. I think there is a huge push, and it's been like this for many, many years, where there's this push towards changing company culture, improving company culture. But what I've noticed is that all of the attempts generally tend to fail to improve company culture. And the reason for that is simple. You're trying to change the wrong thing. Yes. Companies are trying to change the wrong thing. They're trying to change company culture, and company culture does not need to be changed. I've said this earlier on. Company culture does not need change.
That's the symptom.
Exactly.
That's the symptom. Yeah.
Exactly. Company culture, in whatever state and form it is, healthy or unhealthy, is a result of someone who created that culture.
Yeah.
If the culture is healthy, you don't applaud the culture. You applaud the creator and sustainer of that culture. If the culture is weak and toxic and abusive, don't blame the culture. Culture did not create itself. Company culture is not self-creating. Culture does not have the power to create anything. Culture is a created thing. Culture cannot create. Culture create. Culture is created by the people and the leaders who are in the culture. Once again, establish the culture that you want. Put it on a piece of paper. In fact, it's already there. Walk down your passage. You can see your value system. You can see your culture. It's all there. Unfortunately, our company cultures are more on a piece of paper and on signage on a wall than it is in the lives of people. Okay? And so if you want to change the culture, I'm saying to you, bring character back to company culture. In fact, that's part of our mission, Inge, as the All Things Are Possible group, the ATAP group, and our leadership and character development offerings, is that we're working with companies, governments, government departments, corporates around the country, and we are saying bring character back to company culture. We want to bring character back to leadership, back to company culture. I want to take a few moments and I just want to make mention of a few nuggets. Can I just drop a few nuggets that speaks directly to character and company culture? Anyone can fill a leadership position, but not everyone has the character that's fit for the position. Okay? You cannot succeed in leadership while failing in your character. You cannot succeed in leadership while failing in your character, and I will even take it further. You cannot succeed in building a company culture if you fail at introducing character to the company culture. Great talent that lacks character is toxic talent. No matter how great your leaders are, how great your talent is, great talent that lacks character is toxic talent. Work ethic has got nothing to do with work. Work ethic has got everything to do with personal character. If personal character is not present, then neither is work ethic. Far too many leaders, Inge, have the skill set for the positions of power, but not the personal character for the power of the positions. Something that is also of significance that I want to just make mention right now, that I want many leaders and managers to please try and comprehend this, is that sometimes your people don't want leadership from you. They just need humanity from you. Sometimes you got to stop leading and just being human. So sometimes your people don't want leadership from you. Their greatest need from you might just be humanity from you. You cannot lead people who you cannot be humane to. Leadership cannot be present where humanity is not. I will say that again. Leadership cannot be present where humanity is not. And the thing that makes people humane towards each other is their character, your behavior, and how you treat people. And this all speaks to culture, Inge. Your behavior and how you treat people is evidence of your character, not your leadership style. Your behavior and how you treat people is evidence of your character and not your leadership style. So do not blame your leadership or your management style for what your character is responsible for. Do not blame your leadership and your management style for what your character is responsible for. If there are leaders of character in the culture, I'm going to say this again, if there are leaders of character in company cultures, there will be no abuse in the company culture. There will be no mismanagement in that company culture. There will be no disrespect in that company culture. There will be no intimidation in that company culture. There will be no fear in that company culture if there are leaders of character in the company culture. You cannot bring back respect, integrity, honesty, appreciation, compassion, and ethics to a company culture, Inge, if its leadership, are not people of character. If you do not bring character back to the culture and back to the leadership. Companies want the benefits of character. Listen to this. Companies want the benefits of character. What's the benefits of character? People have got integrity. They are loyal. They are committed. They are dedicated. There's respect. There's integrity. There's value. There's appreciation. Those healthy relationships that we talk about, that healthy company culture that we talk about. So companies might not even realize this. They want the benefits of character without spending time, money, and investing in building character. So companies want the benefits. What they don't realize is the things that they want from their employees and the things that they want from their managers actually boils down to character that they want in them. But they want the benefits of a person of character without building character in the person. Character creates company culture. And let me say this, you cannot benefit from what you are not willing to build. You cannot benefit from what you are not willing to build. If you're not willing to build character in your culture, you cannot benefit from a healthy culture. A leader's personal character contributes more to the condition of their company culture, to their workplace relationships, and the employee mental health than their skill sets, intelligence, and qualifications all combined. So when people, within company cultures, you get people, they complain, right? People complain. People who are in company cultures, they complain. They've left, they complain. So when you hear people complaining, and I want to say this to your managers, to leaders, to those who are leading companies, when your people complain that their managers are disrespectful, that their managers and their leaders, and maybe even their colleagues, but specifically leaders and managers, are disrespectful, they are rude, they are arrogant, they are disrespectful, they are dismissive, they are unapproachable, they are insensitive, they lack compassion, they are intolerable, they are vindictive. They are not referring to the leader's leadership skills. They are not referring to the leader's skill sets. They are referring to the leader's character. Because you are not your skill set, you are your character. So if you want to know what your people want, listen to your people, hear what your people say. Your people will tell you what's the condition of your leader's character. Your people will tell you what's the condition of your leader's character. Why? Because the character of your leaders is providing the leadership and determining the culture for your people. Most of the toxicities in company cultures and workplace relationships do not even start in company cultures. It starts in the personal character and in the personal private lives of the leaders that just manifest at the company and in the workplace relationships and in the personal character. People don't see it this way, Inge, that company culture and workplace relationships are only as toxic or only as healthy as the character of the leaders that have created the company culture. And this is significant, and I need to say this. Your workplace relationship that has been created by the personal character of the leader, the workplace relationships that has been created by the personal character of the leader is something that has been created in the private life of that leader that is merely manifesting in the public domain in the workplace. Private personal character is being manifested within company cultures by the leaders who are in charge of those company cultures. And Inge, I know we need to land the plane, and I'm going to take a few moments and just to close up with this. People and employees are being damaged and traumatized in companies by leaders and managers. Now, I need to say this. We love leaders, we love managers, we need leaders, we need them in our lives. It's critical. Leaders are critical to the success of companies, organizations, to society. Leaders are critical, but not just leaders. And I said this at the previous podcast. We do not need leaders. We need leaders of character. So leaders of character are absolutely critical to society, to companies. We love leaders and we develop leaders. That is why we speak in the way that we speak. This is why we do what we do, because we want to empower leaders to not just be strong in skills, but to be strong in personal character. So let me just repeat what I was saying. People, employees are being damaged and traumatized, and many of them are watching us right now. They are traumatized in companies by their leaders and by their managers. And I have to ask, Inge, I have to ask, as a leader and as a manager, do you even realize the indictment it is against you, your leadership, and your personal character? If the people in your care, and they are in your care, if the people in your care are suffering emotionally and mentally, and some to the point of suicide because of your personal impact on their lives, do you realize the indictment it is against you and as against the company that employed you, that your people are suffering emotionally and mentally and psychologically to the point that where they need to be medicated, and some to the point of suicide? Another question that I want to ask you as leaders and as managers and you companies that are out there, exactly what are you doing, leaders, to these people? And what kind of culture are you creating for them that they are suffering this level of mental and emotional pain that warrants medication, warrants psychological intervention, warrants therapy, warrants them spending money to medicate themselves just to cope and survive you? And who are the people, the executives, the companies, the senior executive, the senior leaders and companies that you are accountable to that tolerates the damage and the trauma that you, as the culture creator, is causing your people? Who are you, and what is it that you are doing that people that are suffering to the levels that they are because they cannot stand the company culture that they find themselves in, that you as an individual have created for them? Inge, I know those were what's the word? Tough questions, bitter pills, uncomfortable questions and truths that are needed to pose out there, but it needed to be said. Let me close with this. Leaders, we need you. More specifically, leaders of character, we need you. We need leaders of character. Employees need leaders of character. You know why they need leaders of character and not just leaders? Because people know their mental health will come from leaders of character and not just leaders. They know that their mental well-being, their psychological well-being, their productivity, their happiness, their joy, their holistic well-being, their productivity, success, the quality of their life in general will come from leaders of character, because leaders of character know how to treat people. Leaders, managers out there, let me say this to you. Leaders, you are gatekeepers. You are gatekeepers. Gatekeepers of nations, gatekeepers of societies, gatekeepers of companies, and gatekeepers of company cultures, and gatekeepers of employees and of people. But when you as the gatekeeper lack character, when the gatekeepers lack character, they will seek not to protect what's within the gate, but seek to personally benefit from their position while at the gate. So when the gatekeepers lack personal character, nations and all of the nations and countries' natural resources, societies, companies, and its culture and its people will lack protection. I will say that again. When the gatekeepers lack personal character, a company, a society, a company culture, its people, and even a nation and its natural resources will lack protection, will be vulnerable, will be exposed to all forms of abuse, injustice, mismanagement, intimidation, mismanagement, and greed, like you mentioned earlier on, Inge, and corruption. Why? Because the gatekeepers lack the character to bring protection. All of which, all of the things that I mentioned, all of these things are allowed by the gatekeepers because the gatekeepers personally benefit from not protecting people, societies, companies, and those natural resources. So when the gatekeepers of governments and the gatekeepers of companies and the gatekeepers of societies and the gatekeepers of company cultures and the gatekeepers of people lack character, Inga, there are in fact no gatekeepers. So anything and everything will have access to a country, to a government, to a society, to a company culture, and to the people. Anything, any form of evil will now have access. Why? Because the gatekeepers, they are physically present, but they are not there doing what they need to do. In essence, there are no gatekeepers. Let me say this finally, Inge, in closing. People were never meant to be protected from leaders. People were meant to be protected by leaders. People were never meant to be protected from a company culture. People were meant to be protected in a company culture. But if while working in your company and working for you as an individual that is watching me today, your people need protection from you, I can guarantee you they need protection from your character, because your character is a problem to the people, and it's become a problem to workplace relationships, and it's become a problem to company culture. Inge, character creates company culture. And until companies introduce character development as part of their leadership development and as part of their change management strategy, companies will never get the full benefit of their company and reach the full potential of their people and of their company culture. If a company has a strategy in place to improve their culture, improve their leadership, improve their people, develop their culture, change their culture, and character development is not part of their strategy, I say this with all humility, sir, ma'am, company, your strategy is seriously flawed, because you are missing the foundation of which relationships, workplace relationships is built, the foundation of which company culture is built, and the foundation of which success is built. And so I want to challenge everyone out there. Character creates company culture. And Inge, just to give the leaders and managers a bit of support, not that what we said was not in support, everything we said was in support of leaders. When we say what we say to leaders and address the uncomfortable truth, we were not saying it to condemn leaders. We were saying it to challenge leaders, provoke leaders, so that leaders can change, because mental health, livelihoods, people's lives are at the mercy of the character of the leaders. And I want to speak to the employees as well. Do not expect your leaders to be leaders of character and to be healthy if you yourself lack character and are unhealthy in your character. This is a combined effort. That is what relationships is. Do not come into a workplace relationship with weakness of character and expect your leaders to have strength of character. You are hypocritical. So if you want to have a healthy culture, companies, it does not only mean developing the character of your leaders, it means developing the character of your people. Because when the character of your leaders are strong and the character of your people are strong, and you put them together in a company culture, they will produce the best company culture that everyone, it won't be perfect, but everyone will love that company culture. Why? Because character is the foundation of company culture.
Sure, Shawn. I mean, all of those things are so powerful, and I do hope that the listeners will not and I say this at the start of every podcast, especially where I have you on as a guest, is that these podcasts, it is so meaty, and people shouldn't rush, or just, fast forward. I don't know if business still does that with podcasts, but don't just
skip anything. Just listen through.
Don't flutter through the podcast. I think you literally have to listen, press pause, and process.
Yes.
Because, and I want to underline what you've just said now. And again, I go back to saying that do not approach culture and fixing culture and fixing people and people engagement with a highly convoluted scientific approach. I don't want to take away from the importance and the complexity of culture, but I think sometimes we overcomplicate it so much that it puts us off from actually addressing it. So if I may underline everything that you've just said now with a simple message, and I love the fact that you also addressed the employees,
Yeah.
the teams reporting
Yes.
into leadership, because
Absolutely.
this is a relational approach.
Absolutely.
That's where culture comes from.
Absolutely.
And so I want to underline everything with saying that leaders, there's a reason where there's a saying that says treat others the way you want to be treated. And the same applies to employees as well. So leaders treat your teams the way and lead your teams the way that you want to be led,
Sure.
right? Just because you have leader or manager in your job title doesn't mean people will want to follow you. You'll
Absolutely.
actually find, to your surprise, that they'll end up wanting to follow someone else.
Right.
So be mindful of being a leader that you want to be led by. And so I think that is very important, and have the humility to be open to feedback, to listen to your teams, because it's only through that humility that change can actually happen and change for the better. On the
Okay.
flip side, for employees, be the employee. So if this were your own business, if this were your team, be the employee that you would want to
Absolutely.
be in your team, because
Absolutely.
only then will you achieve and reach success. So Shawn, thank you very much. This was, I think, not to take away from the importance of the other topics that we've covered thus far, but this was actually a very hard hitting culmination
For sure.
of everything that you've touched on. And I think, again, character is so important. And as I think also, people, if you don't know what you don't know, then you can't lead what you don't
Absolutely.
know, and you can't
Yes.
lead with character if you don't know what good character looks like. So I think
Absolutely.
we have to be very clear and know what the behavioral anchors are. In other words, what are the behavioral cues when we talk about good character?
Yes.
Know what integrity should be looking like. Know
Yes.
what honesty should look like.
Yeah.
And what I also want to caution leaders is, and this is me speaking as somebody who's experienced burnout a few times in her life, been
Mm.
medicated for it, depression and anxiety and all the good stuff. But do not, as a leader, do not tolerate bad behavior, bad
Yes.
character, like you just said, Shawn,
Especially,
within the
especially in the high performers.
absolutely. So just because, yes, they bring in the sales and all of that, but if they are hurting the culture,
Absolutely.
then
They're
it's
doing more
not
damage.
worth. Yeah, absolutely. So be careful to be chasing after the mighty dollar, the mighty rand, at the cost of your people. Because then that is when you start seeing the bad culture. Shawn,
Indeed. And before
yes.
you go any further, I like what you said that don't about not knowing, the not knowing. Do
Hmm.
not think that what you do not know is not important.
Yeah.
Do not
Yeah.
think that what you do not know is not important. All right, because what you don't know could be the missing ingredient for you to change company culture,
Absolutely.
change the environment, etc. Inga, you see character in the way people behave towards you.
Hmm.
You hear character in the way people speak to you. You feel character in the way people treat you. And you
Hmm.
experience character in their relationships with you. Your relationships with people is relationships with their character. You
Hmm.
can never experience someone without experiencing their character. There
Hmm.
are no human, interpersonal, and workplace relationships that is void of
Hmm.
personal character. So if you
Yeah.
want to build that company culture, leaders and employees, it's critical that you start to
Hmm.
and build your
Hmm.
character.
Shawn, so for companies, and I don't want to use the word fix because I think it's got such a negative connotation to it, but
Yes.
companies who want to enhance their culture, that want to enhance all forms of leadership. Those companies out there who wanted a character work with you, with your team, with the All Things Are Possible group, how can they reach out to you? How can they get hold of you?
Thank you. I appreciate it, Inge. And just to let the audience know out there, especially those companies. So as a company, I, myself, and the All Things Are Possible group, we do leadership and character development, and we have various offerings that we've spoken about over the last month. Inge, we have leadership and character development, which is one of our offerings within our brand. Woman leadership character development, youth leadership character development, leadership character coaching, and obviously today we're speaking on leadership and on character and company culture. So if you would like to invite me to speak on leadership and character at your conferences, please feel free to reach out to me. If you would love to know more about our programs and our offerings on leadership and character and the role that it plays in company culture, please connect with me. I'm available on my email address is Shawn@ATAP Group. That's Shawn, SHAWN at ATAP Group, ATAP Group, Shawn@ATAPgroup.co.za, Shawn@ATAPgroup.co.za. My phone number +27 82 1853. I also encourage the audience to check out my LinkedIn profile. I put out lots and lots of content on leadership and character. In fact, 99% of what I post is on leadership and character. I'm a leadership and character content creator, so I create content around leadership, character, company culture. Please connect with me, Shawn Naidu, ATAP Group, Shawn Naidu, ATAP Group on LinkedIn. You can get me on Facebook at Shawn Naidu 7 and on Instagram as well. And you're welcome to connect with me on my YouTube channel as well. So thank you so much for that, Inge. I'm looking forward to being a part of helping companies, coming alongside companies to empower them, help them change, develop, improve their company cultures with something which I know that is not on the cards, it's not on the table as yet. So if companies want to know more, need to know more, and if they need me as a conference speaker, they're welcome to connect with me. If they want to do the workshops at their companies, they're welcome to do so. I speak to my African brothers and sisters out there. I'm in the process of negotiating and discussing some plans to run some summits in Africa on leadership and character. So if there's any interest out there and you want to know more about it, let's do this. So thank you so much.
Love it. And Shawn, I think you're putting out there such an important, hard-hitting message. So please continue what you are doing. Don't lose energy and momentum with what you are doing. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time out and really just sharing with the audience, the important message of character and just how it runs through everything, ultimately to a healthy society. So a huge thank you, Shawn, as always. And for those who have not subscribed to Ideas Exchange on YouTube, please do so. If this video has popped up on your feed, that is definitely a sign. So click the subscribe button, click the notification button to not miss any future episodes. And I do invite you all, please drop in the comments just suggestions of topics. I'm always open to exploring new themes. Excited to also have other guests on the podcast as well, but also join our Ideas Exchange Thought Leader community. Shawn is one of them, and be part of a community, that shares, that build, that collaborates, and
it's an amazing community to be a part of.
Absolutely.
Absolutely valuable. And for those who missed the first 3 series or sessions on this leadership and character, please go ahead and connect to the previous sessions as well. Inge, you're doing an absolutely amazing job to your Ideas Exchange platform and through your life coaching and your executive coaching. And I really encourage people out there who are looking for a coach. You might not think you need one, but I really encourage you and challenge you to connect with Inge. Absolutely amazing. You need your life transform and change. You need somebody to come alongside your company, and this is not just for independent companies as well. Please connect with Inge. And so Inge, I am so appreciative of the time. I look forward to future sessions. Thank you for hosting me over this last month and a half. I really appreciate it. It's been amazing. So thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure, Shawn. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
And we chat soon.
All the best to you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.